We tis live.
Yep.
Look, man. I don't know. I got nothing. I don't know.
What are you sipping on, Hapa? I got hey,
I got
look,
some,
we haven't done this in long
cheers to
enough.
you. Cheers to you. You and I poured especially. That's like a fist full of whiskey.
It's an Alabama gentleman, so it's Gentleman Jack, Buffalo Rock, and a lime. So yeah, you know what's up.
I got some Austin Distillers whiskey, and it's 100 proof. So
Ooh.
I had to let some ice cubes
to the
kind of do their.
mood.
Yeah, I gotta let some ice cubes do ice cube things before I start drinking it. Otherwise, I'll just be
You gotta percolate the 100. You pass 100,
Yeah.
you gotta percolate.
Oh man, like if I could put it in my truck and drive to the store in it, I think that's a little.
Yeah, the first time I was in Atlanta, and I think I've told this story maybe on podcast before, but I was in Atlanta and had not eaten all day. I was meeting a client, and we went to the steak restaurant. Impressing this client, right? So I was like, we gotta go to this nice place, go to the steak restaurant. And I had not eaten, and I mean when I say I had not eaten all day, I mean I had not eaten anything all day.
Oh,
It was
good.
nothing but water all day. So we sit down at the steak restaurant, and waiter is like, hey, what do you like to drink? And everybody starts ordering drinks. And I was like, I like bourbon. What do you got? He's like, I got the thing for you. He brought me some Noah's Mill. It was 114 proof.
Oof.
I was two in. Yeah, I was two in before I realized it was 114 proof. And I had no food. Ludacris was sitting at the next table. No kidding. Like, Ludacris was actually sitting at the next table. And I was like, okay, 114. You pass 100, and it means something.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow. So I was like trying
close
to
coming
not
off
say anything.
level of insanity right there.
Yeah, you're sitting there like just trying to like, yes, this is a very interesting conversation, and then I'm trying to find food anywhere I can find it. Like, are you gonna eat that breadstick? Like anywhere I can scrounge food. Hey, Ludacris, have you got any bread? Like,
Luna.
yeah, Luna. Yeah. So no, I will tell you, you pass 100 proof, and you have business.
Good
You get into
times. Good
business.
times.
How are you doing, buddy?
Actually, Jim knows this. By the way, hello, Jim. He knows this bourbon. This is one of the bottles
What's
that
up,
we got
buddy?
from Austin Distillers when him and Sea Raptor and his wife came to visit. So it was good times, man. I'm good though, man. How are you?
I am well. Today sucked, but we haven't done. It is, by the way, December the 11th, 2024, the year of our Lord. And we have not really been on our podcast schedule. That is not to say we have not been hanging out.
We have a
We got to
schedule.
hang-
I just don't know if we have a podcast schedule.
I guess it's like what was it Gandalf says? A wizard arrives precisely when he
Exactly.
needs to. So
Yeah.
the podcast schedule is whenever we record a podcast.
Yeah.
Don't yell at me, Dad.
Yeah.
And so we got to hang out in Mobile, Alabama. We met in Mobile.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Alabama. I needed that trip. That I have told you this. Like, we got to celebrate some stuff that I can't talk about here, but like we got to celebrate. Got to hang out with friends, have some drinks, just chill in Mobile. Sit outside of a Queensryche concert.
Yeah, man. That was
Like,
that
we
was
had dinner
awesome. That was
outside
a
of
great
Queensryche
night.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. What a wonderful time we had. Got to hang out with Rita.
I
Walk all over the ships, the submarines, see the tanks.
I've been saying this for years. I've been to Mobile now 3 times in my life, and I've been all over the United States. I've been to all kinds of different cities and towns and what have you, and I don't know what it is about Mobile, but going there in the off season to me is literally my favorite place in the country. Like, I'm not even joking.
Really?
Literally,
I mean,
my
you were
favorite
talking
place in
nice
the
about
country.
it.
Yeah.
You and Rita stayed an extra night, and when we were there, we went to a great restaurant to start.
Yeah.
We both rolled into town, and we went to a really great place, and there was not a bad experience had. But when we were there, you were talking pretty nice about it. But you stayed an extra night, and so after leaving, you're talking even nicer about it. I love Mobile. I think it's a great.
I'm telling you, man. I would say I think despise is the right level of thought process that I have towards city life. I don't like cities. I just don't like city life. And for me, Mobile in the off season has just enough mixture of the busy city life, but not really to really be enjoyable. It's the same way, the same outlook I have with Baton Rouge. Like everyone's like, "Oh, you got to go to NOLA, you got to go to New Orleans." I hate New Orleans. I mean, I'm sorry if anybody lives in New Orleans and listens. I can't stand it. I can't stand that town. It's just it's a whole bunch of stuff crammed into very little space, and it's just too much party, too much noise for me. Matter of fact, on the way into Mobile, we stayed in downtown New Orleans the night before because it's a long drive, and I got out of the truck and was immediately just in a bad mood. Just immediately in a bad mood because it was noisy, it was hot and humid. It just wasn't my speed, you know. And I've lived in cities, San Diego, I've lived in, Seattle, I've lived in Pensacola, Florida, which is not a big city, but busier city. I just not a fan. And Mobile has just the right amount of action and good people and good times and good restaurants and good bars and sites and everything. And it's, I really do wish that you guys could have stayed one more night, because that last night that Rita and I stayed, it was a good time, man. It was really
well. It was a bar we had been wanting to go to the whole time.
Yeah.
We didn't get to go, right? And I will just have to do it again. And I agree. I do like cities, right? So we're kind of different in that, but I like cities for 3 nights, right? I love going, but I can't imagine living in Manhattan as an example. I would get claustrophobic, and so for me, Mobile. And to your point, Baton Rouge is fairly similar in size. Mobile, when you walk 3 blocks from the hotel, you're in like the entertainment district, and it is a fairly small, consolidated, 5-block or so entertainment district. So you can just kind of hang out there, and then 3 blocks back to the hotel. There's enough people and enough stuff going on that those places have business, right? So they're supported. Yeah. And like you don't have to wait an hour and a half for a table. But the restaurant is full, right? There's a balance that cities have to strike where if you ask me to wait an hour and a half for a table and I'm visiting a city and I don't have reservations, I'm just not eating at your restaurant because that's how it's going to go. Yeah. So I do think Mobile is a great town. And the USS Alabama, if people haven't been to that park, it's a great visit. There's the USS Drum that's there, which is a diesel submarine, which is a fantastic. We spent way more time on the Drum than I thought we would. We had a lot of fun hanging on the Drum. And then the park itself has a really good museum for some aircraft and some tanks and stuff like that. And Rita was able to wander for hours on end, and we tried to find her. But it was a really great trip, and we went 2 days in a row. And I do think if you went to the park and you were dedicated, you could do it in a day. But the 2 days thing made it really relaxed, and I did enjoy how relaxed it was to just like chill. Go eat lunch at the park, right? It was a nice experience. Yeah, I was really glad. We loved hanging out with y'all, and we had an absolute blast.
Oh, it was fantastic. I really hate if I go to a big museum like that, and like you said, like you feel like you want to try to cram everything in before they close, because you definitely feel like you miss stuff, you don't pay attention to stuff, you don't catch the little things that you might be looking for. And as retired Navy and a history nerd, I'm always looking for that stuff. So it's like, perfect example is, me and Rita went to the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. We were only there for about 4 or 5 hours, but I know for a fact we missed a lot, because I was like, we're on a time crunch to get to Mobile, so I was kind of in a hurry. But I mean, you're right, and I think we said it before we even went. I was like, you gotta spend at least 2 days at that museum, because there's just so much to see.
Yeah. You really don't. You can see the way it works out is you see the Alabama and you need to spend a day there. You do not want to rush through something the size of the USS Alabama. You will miss so much. And I will say, my family and I, we've talked about it so much about how much we enjoyed hanging out with y'all, and you being like, hey, this and that, and this and that, and that. I remember this and that. That was so much fun for us. And Rita crawling all over tanks because she's like spider monkey, just like a capuchin monkey, like running through the
right. Yeah. we made the joke that I need to get like a balloon and like tie it to Rita so we knew where she was at all times.
It was the only way you would see her behind these huge APCs and stuff. So like, but it was a really good time. If people haven't been, you gotta go. Like, you really gotta
for
go.
sure.
we met playing a game, World of Warships, and one of the things that kind of constantly gets said on World of Warships is the ships aren't really this big, right? In the game, they're like, "Oh, they aren't really this big. This is out of scale." And I'm like, I've always been like, I don't know, man. Have you ever been on a battleship? Oh, these ships are not to scale. Because in the game, it boggles your mind when the ships are up next to one of these, represented in the game, a small like island town or whatever, or a village, and it's like, nah, man. They are that big, right?
Yeah,
it's not the scale may be exaggerated some in that game, but it is not so much that it's inaccurate, right? And so if you get a chance to walk through the USS Alabama, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And Mobile's a great time to do it. So it's been a couple nights in Mobile.
Yeah, it for sure is. And like the hotel that you and your family stayed in was beautiful. The Hilton. The Hilton that me and Rita stayed in the middle of Mobile was, well, both of our hotels were perfectly located. I mean, right central to walking distance to everything.
How close we were.
Yeah, it was great. So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like I think too many Americans take for granted the amount of historical spots we have like that, like the ship museum specifically. Like, nobody else in the world has a collection of naval warships like we do all around our country, and not just on the ocean or in the Gulf. Like, there's literally, there's a German submarine in Chicago. There's ships in the middle of the country.
Indoors.
And, yes, indoors. Yeah. So, and that's history. That's like, I mean, we could pontificate about it all night long about how important it is to see that stuff, but it really is important to see. I mean, when you think about the Alabama alone, that crew was 2,500 plus strong, and she was active until the end of World War II, and you got to think of how many men served on board her throughout those years. I mean, the amount of memories and miles traveled, et cetera, like that. Just if you start thinking in that context, hopefully you kind of get an idea of scale of importance of these ships, right? So
and the Alabama, as an example, served in both theaters, right? So it started in the Atlantic, chasing down, I think it was the Tirpitz, and it was like going through the fjords looking for these German battleships that were rumored to exist, but the Germans would never actually roll them out to fight anybody. And the Alabama never found the German battleships, so headed back, went through the Panama Canal, went served the Pacific, and rolled into Tokyo with the fleet that was rolling in with the, hey, we're gonna go sign, a surrender, and that's a big thing, right? So like it is a cool thing to see. And we noted when we were there, the Alabama, the deck had been redone, and it was very well done, right? They had put new wood on the deck, and what people I think don't always appreciate is we have these things and they cost a lot of money and manpower to maintain. And if you don't go visit them, consider contributing to the right. Consider being like, hey, I'm just going to send $20 to help maintain stuff, because I think it was the USS Texas was listing 4 degrees or something when it originally went into dry dock, and they're like, we got to take it to dry dock, and now they're trying to figure out where to put it back. And one of the things I loved when you were at Wargaming was the event that y'all did where you sold the Texas in the game, and all the proceeds went to the actual Dreadnought battleship. And to me, you used to do the night at the museum, right? Night at the museums and 24 hours of museum. Like, we did these. Those are my favorite events.
Which was a global. That was a global event. It was videos from museums from all over the world, and I would just encourage people. A lot of times you don't. It seems like a lot of times people don't think about museums as a thing to go. And I think you should. Anyway, we had a great time. And it was fantastic. It was a good trip. Oh yeah,
it was a good trip. We didn't have a lot of. I wasn't sure we were going to talk about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. We did not have a lot of drones. What the hell's going on with the drones, Hapa? Not a lot of drones in Mobile, so we dodged that.
Seven and I were talking about it right before we started, because I was like, next episode, I was like, we should probably talk about it. He's like, well, I want to talk about it tonight. And I said, well, because there's not really much information going on. Like, there's a lot of tinfoil hatting going on, a lot of accusations that it might be a foreign adversary, flying drones all over the place. There's supposedly drones over a bunch of military installations, which is scary as shit. Not gonna lie. I've seen a lot of tinfoil hatting. Someone had said they flew their personal drone out to try to get a camera view of one of these drones, and the battery was full when they launched the drone, and something literally drained the batteries on the way out to go videotape or record the drone that they were seeing. Well, if you don't know, a lot of these drones are programmed. When battery gets to a certain point, they automatically come back. They return there's enough power just for them to return, and that's what they do. But this one, just the battery drained so quickly, it just crashed and broke. And the guy was like, something drained the battery, so there's tinfoil hatting going on there, and just a lot of craziness going on, man. I told Rita, I was like, maybe I need to get out there, buy a shotgun, freaking.
Well, it's in New Jersey, right? So you have to wonder. I mean, there are way more guns in this country than there are people. How are we not taking care of this problem? I feel like this is a thing we could solve.
Well, let's be honest. I'm actually happy that we're not shooting at the drones, because a lot of people don't recognize that your bullet goes up. It's got to come down somewhere. So
it comes down somewhere.
I'm just saying.
But it is, it is New Jersey, right? Like
it is New Jersey. This is the true statement. No, it's weird, man. This year, I mean, it's coming to a close, and it's already every day getting weirder and weirder. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. So. I would have said 2023 was as weird as it gets, but here we are. Nope, it keeps getting weirder. Getting weirder, man.
So there's a mothership, and drones are flying all over New Jersey, and congressmen are like, it's launched by Iranians, and I was like, brother, Iranians, I don't know if you've noticed, but every one of their allies has now been disassembled.
Yes, and I think Iran's got better, more and more getting disassembled. Right.
I think Iranians care way less about Hoboken, New Jersey than you might imagine, friend.
But Hoboken is important for strategic. I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I got nothing.
Right? So it's like, it's Iranian drones. I mean, okay. It's Chinese weather balloons, man. All right.
Well, what's funny, too, is that they had like a hearing or whatever with the FBI, and the FBI's, they were saying, we don't know who they are, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's free. How do you not know? It's like, really? Do you really think everybody, you think the FBI knows everyone that owns a drone? Like, really? Come on, man. They actually have to do an investigation. And,
right, it's not a 30-minute CSI television show where it has to be wrapped up. Right? No, investigating stuff's actually pretty hard. I mean, we had someone kill someone in the middle of the street on camera everywhere that looks like a supermodel.
On camera. Oh, my God.
Random lady at McDonald's being like, I think that's him. And then the police were like, yeah, I think you're right. Oh, I'll be
turns out that's the guy. No, it's definitely been a weird. This month actually has been weird. There's been a lot of weird stuff in general. Just look, man, we're gonna roll. We're not rolling into 2025 is about to be the craziness. I think
we got some momentum. We got some momentum going.
What is going on, man?
Y'all buckle up. It's gonna be a bipolar roller coaster. Here we go. Yeah. No, it's gonna be crazy. The drones thing, I was following that, and I was like, what the heck? And then, of course, the whole country's been obsessed with the CEO shooter, and which insanity. I mean, oh my gosh, if you want to see how society is decaying, just look at how people react these days to cold-blooded murders, right? It's really weird. Like you said, there's just a lot going on.
What's really, really sad and scary, but also kind of understandable is the amount of hate towards insurance companies in general. The comments that I've seen directed at this guy that was unfortunately the receiver of the assassination is pretty heartless. It's pretty heartless, but at the same instance,
it has been
that insurance companies aren't exactly the paragon of helpful institutions, right? It's like claiming that FEMA is there to help, right? It's kind of a joke at this point. Everybody kind of believes the same level of angst, I think. But that still was a guy that might have had a family or whatever. Come on, man.
Well, insurance is the United States healthcare system could use some tweaking and looking at, and insurance is kind of the interesting. I spent some time at an insurance company as a consultant one time, and everyone there wore nicer clothes than me.
Yeah.
Everyone. So they had more money than I did, and I realized one day that every single dollar that they had was because they told someone who needed healthcare no.
Yeah.
And that is not me saying that from a jaded standpoint. That is actually the business model. I'm going to take your money, right, at monthly or whatever. You're going to pay me. And when you get to the point that you need some sort of treatment, if I pay it all back, then I made no money.
Yep.
So my job is to be like, no, I know that you shattered your ankle in 14 places. I'm not going to help. And a lot of insurance companies do that by default the first time, right? Oh, you've called, I'm going to say no. Because a lot of people just give up after that.
Yeah.
And then if you push it, maybe they'll give you coverage, right? And it's become such a thing, I think, that people are getting insurance is an interesting middleman that we have in this country, that you basically have to have it, and you have to have it attached to employment. There's just a whole lot there.
Yeah.
That's going to drive a ton of emotionality for people, because when you're talking about insurance covering, you're probably having one of the worst days of your life when you need it.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
So
yeah,
you're already in a state. So yeah, I mean, emotionality tied to healthcare and insurance is just a real thing. And I think I can't blame people for being in an emotional state about those sorts of things. That's real. Also, don't kill people. What the hell? Like, I'm not, right? Like, do we have to tell people this now? Like, that's not a good look, right? You're getting your point across by killing somebody else probably is not the way. But you and I have been on this podcast many times saying, regardless of the situation, we think killing people is not the play. So,
yeah, I mean, it solves nothing, right?
No.
But so we just mentioned the moral high ground, but let's talk about the fact that that unfortunate gentleman got killed in front of the building that they were going to have a meeting at. The meeting still happened. Like the corporate meeting.
I didn't know that. Did they actually do that?
It was a board of directors for the insurance company meeting.
I knew it was like
it was
an earnings meeting or something like that. They went ahead and were like, I don't know, man. He got
to me, it's like, brother, you just kind of stepped over your colleague's body, essentially, and continued on. Like, I'm not saying that you should not, but maybe a pause for the day might be a little better, I don't know.
Might be in order.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a board of directors kind of guy, but it seems like a morally important kind of thing, So
it does seem like you would say, hey, you know what? The CEO of our company got gunned down in the street in front of the building this morning. We're going to take a pause for a minute.
Yeah.
We think that we're going to put this off till next week and give us time to gather ourselves. But no, I did not know they had done the meeting. That tracks, actually. But, it is what it is. My heart actually, look, I've lost family unexpectedly, and my heart goes out to anyone who has to deal with that. It's not pleasant. It'll tear families apart. When you're talking about someone departing this life, the ramifications of that are much broader than that one person, always.
Yeah.
So you're talking about someone's gone, right? And that always feels bad. It doesn't matter what you thought about that person. It's just not. Someone is going to miss them, right? So, murder in the street probably ain't the thing. And you know what happened? These are not the subjects we had to talk about.
No, not even slightly. We're here we are, freaking 25 minutes in, and we haven't even touched those subjects. However,
we just get started.
It's a good segue into corporate thinking, because not our first, but our second and our third topics are based around that. It's probably a good segue there to talk about.
Yeah, I was actually going to look at that. Why don't we just go with the third one? Start with that one. It's
fine. Yeah,
that's the best, I think. So one of the things that we talk about a lot here is video games. We love video games. We met playing video games. We play video games together every chance we get. And Hapa has actually been in the video games industry. I work in the technology industry, not in video games. And one of the things we talk about a lot is how bizarre it is to us, the management decisions and structures that go on in video game studios. And one of the things that happened recently was Stalker 2, right? So Stalker 2 got delayed, and it still sold well, right? People were into it.
Yeah.
But there was this article that comes out, and you sent me this article. I read it, but tell me your thoughts on this article. So it's Eurogamer is where we're getting the article from. But basically, the studio head had some opinions on why the game was delayed and what that felt like and what that was like.
Yeah. Well, so they did delay it once, and then they released it, and the game has just been plagued with, you name it, they've got it. The bugs, crashes, graphical issues, just all kinds of problems that you would think a AAA title you wouldn't want to have connected to. I say that, but we've been talking for the last 2 years now about all these games that release with all these issues, right? And so the release with all the bugs and issues didn't really strike me so much. It was the lead of the company basically stating that they couldn't delay it anymore because the dev team was exhausted. And
saying we can't delay it more because the dev team's burnt out. That was what was
that was his argument. Now, to quote him, he said, "You're so tired that you would just die if you say, let's run an additional marathon. We didn't have a chance to say, let's do it more. We just had a chance of let's do until this moment, the release date, as much as we can." So I hate to say it, but I read that and I got a little bit angry because I'm like,
tell me about your anger there. I have a lot of feelings. Tell me about your anger there.
My thing is like, look, I have absolutely no doubt that the developers and the folks working on this game poured their heart and their soul into this project, because the folks that like the Stalker franchise, they're pretty hardcore into the franchise. They love the story, they love the game. The first one was very successful, obviously, because they made a second one. So here's my question. Let's say you set a deadline a year and a half from now, June of 26. Let's say we're going to release a game, and April of 26 rolls around, and your devs come to you and say, we've got a whole list of issues that we need to get to, but we need more time. And okay, we'll push it to November. Okay, November 26. They've gotten a lot of the bugs down. They've polished a lot of stuff. They still have a list of bugs and issues that are pretty substantial. The lead dev goes and says, we probably need to move it out a little further, even. It would be, we've said this time and time again, in my opinion, it's stupid to say, no, release it. It doesn't matter. Just release it. Because if you think for one moment that your product, which I've also said before, isn't the game, the product is your community that's going to play said game. Yeah. Right. If you don't think that your product's not going to pick up on the lack of completion of a product, you are just completely missing the mark. And the comments that this guy had made to me, it just sounded like he was making an excuse for all the issues, because someone told them the game will be released on this date no matter what. Because I promise you, there's no dev out there that's going to sit there and say, no, I don't want to work on it for another 6 months. I promise you. Right?
Well, that's really the... And don't want to miss the detail. This is a Ukrainian team that was doing this through war.
Yeah.
And I have overseen hundreds of software projects and teams. And there's always a moment where you have to make a decision to release the thing, because no such thing as perfect software exists, right? Unless you're talking about the Zelda franchise from Nintendo. I get it. I know they're perfect. I don't know how they do it, but it's magic. They launch games and it's somehow works. But the reality is you have to make that decision at some point. And the interesting thing to me is you should be able to, like, the reason for delaying is you want to do more work, you want to make some changes, whatever the thing is. The only reasons not to delay normally are we're running out of money, right? Yeah. That's the only reason normally. In this instance, they were like, I don't think the team can work anymore. Okay, so you have mismanaged the team you've done such a poor job of managing your team that they are burnt out to the point where they don't want to work for you anymore. That's really what they're telling you. Because, like you said, if I enjoy my job and I'm enjoying going in every day and working on something, saying, hey, we actually do want to wait another 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Y'all just keep working. Y'all are kicking ass. Seems like you're having a good time. You're taken care of. Let's high five. Keep working on it. Keep working on it. We'll get it there. That is a different thing than the team saying, I don't think we can delay because the team is too sick of working on the product. That does not speak well for what your product's going to end up being. It just does not.
Yeah, and that's the way that I read his quotes. So I saw a video on his release, and I've seen, tweets, zeets, whatever we're calling it today, about the whole thing, and it just sounded very tone deaf to me, the way that he was describing what was going on. It's like, well, I don't know. I haven't known a whole lot of devs, to be honest with you, but I've never met a dev that's just like going to be like, well, that's close enough, when it comes to a product. Like, I find it hard to believe that any dev is going to say, I can't work on this anymore. I can't work on it anymore. Unless they legitimately hate the product. If they hate the product, that's a different thing, right?
I have met a lot of devs, and I've never had one tell me, I just don't want to work on this product anymore. I've had people be like, oh, I'm burnt out, I need to break. That's a different, right?
And
that happens.
Totally different thing, though, right? Like,
yeah, 100%. And your responsibility is to be like, I know, you kind of been kicking ass. Are you like, you want a week? What do you want? 2 weeks? You want to take a week off and come back and work on something just fun for a week? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
That's the way you handle that. And apparently in this case, Stalker 2 launches with a bunch of bugs and stuff like that. And I'll be honest, man, there's games, we'll talk about one later, you can buy in to the vision of an alpha product, and they say it's an alpha product. And you're going to be early in, and I'm, I don't do that often, but in the case of the game we'll talk about later, I am doing that because I'm like, I believe in the company and I do want to help you test it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm actually being like, yeah, I know I'm testing it for you, and I'm here to do that. That is a thing. But there's also a thing where you're like, no, I'm going to launch the game as a full product. I'm going to charge you AAA money, and it's going to be a crappy product. And the developer's saying, yeah, I don't want to work on it anymore. Well, I mean, what are you going to do in that first patch?
I guess what I don't understand is why wouldn't you call it early access at that point? Because to me, as a consumer, if you call a game early access, and maybe I'm weird, but if you call a game early access and it has bugs and everything, in my opinion, it's early access. Bugs are going to occur, right? There's no such thing as alpha or beta testing anymore. That doesn't exist. That is early access. Every game that has alpha, beta testing or alpha, beta waves, okay, don't kid yourself out there in gamer land. That is early access. Alpha doesn't exist anymore. Beta doesn't exist anymore. So for me, for them to have set the release date of November 20th, and here we are about a month later talking about it, and they're still having issues. I've read somewhere that a bunch of people, like huge amounts of people, are getting refunds because the game is so bad, and just on and on and on.
Oh, are they?
Why didn't you just call it early access and say, hey, look, there's bugs. We're still working on it. This is early access, right? Like, at that point,
that
I wouldn't be so critical.
Some people have figured out, right? Like, there's plenty of game companies out there. We tend to praise, and I think we should. I like that we do that. We tend to praise companies like Larian that launched, Baldur's Gate 3. They took the extra time and were like, we're going to make it as good as we can. And they did that model where we're going to charge you a AAA number for the game, but the game works and is complete. And there were tweaks here and there, and they fixed those, and they still do some little things. But at the end of the day, they were trying really hard to make it a complete experience right out of the box. And a lot of the changes they made were changes based on feedback from people that were like, I really wish this character had a more of a storyline. They went and added content. And that's a thing. And then there's a thing all the way on the other end of the spectrum where someone is like, I don't know where this is going to go. But if you want in and you want to participate, do that. And people are okay with either one. And those models are pretty well established at this point. So I don't know why Stalker 2 would not have come across and been like, what we're going to do is we're gonna do a pre-alpha, for all of our fans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You get in. It's half price right now if you buy it now, because you're gonna test it for us and give us some feedback. What we require is, a little bit of money, and if you want to be on a Discord with our devs, come on. It's a different thing, yeah. But then the dev team, I would say that one of the trends we're seeing, and you and I were talking about this when we saw this article originally, and one of the things I wanted to bring up in this conversation is the trend we are seeing in the video game industry is a trend of very toxic management, burning out really good artists and devs.
Yeah.
And as someone who loves video games, that concerns me. As someone who builds technology for a living, that concerns me.
Well, I think you and I also had a conversation about this a couple times too, where we talked about, I think a lot of the problem is you got people that may have never even really played a game running these game companies, right? Because what have we heard? What have we heard in the last year? We heard the problem with the games industry is the gamers. We've heard that.
Oh, Ubisoft.
That's
Ubisoft,
that's always
right?
that's always a great thing to do. Freaking insult your market, right? That's a great one.
The head of monetization from Ubisoft. The problem here is the gamers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, really? We heard, don't you have cell phones? We've heard,
oh my God.
We've heard, well, you should be paying way more for a AAA title. The AAA titles, you should be paying over $100. That's what you should be paying.
This is a quadruple A title.
Plus, you should be having microtransactions. We've heard.
Oh my God, dude, the microtransactions.
We've heard the very tone deaf thought process of, well, we know we're really good at this, but we're going to go a different direction with the entire freaking company, only to have it implode in our face and then be like, oops, nah, we're not going to go back to what we do good.
Well, and that's actually the perfect segue. One of the subjects we wanted to talk about is Rocksteady, one of my favorite studios of all time.
Yeah.
Rocksteady, who made the most recent game that they launched was on behalf of Warner Brothers, and it was Kill the Justice League. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And it's a game that you and I picked up along with your brother and Rita, and we picked this game up, and honestly, we played it pre-release and had a blast.
It was
we
a lot
played
of
it on
fun.
release.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. The four of us had an absolute blast playing this game. We did know the game felt incomplete, and we got to kind of the end of it, and we're like, oh, that's absolutely incomplete.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of was like, done. And we're like, oh, well, that's weird. Because Rocksteady, I played all the Arkham games, and I consider the Arkham games, and we've talked about this before, some of the best superhero games ever made. They're really good at a lot of things. But what the publisher wanted to do is not what Rocksteady does. So they forced them into this microtransaction hell of a format, and then laid off people at Rocksteady, and now are actually, unsurprisingly, canceling future contents for Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. So they're going to do season 4, and then they're going to kill the content, which is not surprising. I think it was like 400 people were left playing the game.
Yeah.
But the story that Rocksteady absolutely started with, because they are master storytellers in gaming. If you've ever played the Arkham games, they are very good at that. I promise you, there are people who were like, I wanted to tell the story of the game, and you didn't let me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The moment, dude, seriously, I'll never forget us playing together in a museum. Batman is who we're looking for.
Oh, man.
Harley Quinn says, don't worry, Bats doesn't kill people. And about that time, you hear some scuffling, some slicing, and a body comes flying at you dead. And it's like, oh,
things have
this is a different take. This is a different take. And it was a terrifying scene to play through with Batman hunting you.
Yeah.
And knowing that Batman has given up on his principles. Like, that was a whole terrible... Dude, it was well done, and I'm very disappointed with the way that game ended up going. And I would love to know how you feel now that the journey is kind of over. We've talked about it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot.
Lamenting, oh, the game was so good.
Well, it was frustrating because the beginning of that game, like you said, the storytelling and the dialogue and everything was on point. Like, they were doing a fantastic job of storytelling. And I was thinking about this the other day when we were talking about it. I didn't really notice any bugs or issues in the game until we neared where we were quote unquote at the stopping point. Like it's almost like they actually put the work in to make sure the actual story was good. It wasn't until you got near the end where the game started having all these issues and crashes and everything going on. And it's like, oh yeah, so now that I think about it, you could see where they were like, just push it out. Just push it out. We'll worry about the rest later, you know, and like we said, you know, we're not gonna do games like Hogwarts Legacy that made us $1 billion with a B, $1 billion for how tone deaf do you have to be to have a title make you $1 billion and for whatever reason you think, nah, that's not the direction we need to go. What do you mean? And then you look at Kill the Justice League, they lost over $200 million on that game. Like, seriously? I don't know.
Yeah.
And we saw the writing on the wall for this one, but
what Hapa is talking about here is Warner Brothers Studios. So let's make sure we review that, because I think it's important, if you haven't heard our other podcast, to know one of the things that we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on podcast, but a long time ago when Rocksteady was purchased by Warner Brothers, that's not I never saw that as a good thing, because Rocksteady was Rocksteady. Yeah. And Warner Brothers was, as someone who is considered a suit, it's a bunch of suits, right, who don't care about the art of game making. Warner Brothers literally released Hogwarts Legacy, most popular, it was the best game of the year, one of the best games of the year, most popular game, made them $1 billion. It was the most profitable game they've ever released. And before it was even done being content added, the president of the division said, we'll never do another game like Hogwarts Legacy. We're going to do all microtransaction games. We're going to do all subscription-based games. And that was on the heels of releasing the best game Warner Brothers has ever made. And if you have not played Hogwarts Legacy, I will tell you it's a near masterpiece as far as games go. If you like the Hogwarts world and the world of, you know, Harry Potter and wizarding and all that, it feels like you are at Hogwarts. It is a very good game, and it worked. I enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it, right? Like, it had a broad appeal. It looked amazing. It played amazing. It felt complete.
Yeah.
It was really well done. And so, saying on the heels of that, you know, you have the ability to make games like that, and what you're saying is, I don't want to. Well,
that blows my mind.
Okay.
I don't even understand. Like, and by the way, if you Google how many games have made over $1 billion, the list is mobile games. Like, all of them are mobile games.
Is it really?
All of them.
I would love to know. Do you have the list pulled up?
No, it was a YouTube video. I don't want to pull it up, but I just looked at the synopsis really quick. I'm kind of curious to see, and I probably should have did a little bit refined search, like how many AAA games have made $1 billion. Because I find it hard to believe that there's too many. I'm willing to believe there aren't that many out there that have made $1 billion freaking dollars, right? And anyway, the point that we were making with this Kill the Justice League thing is Rocksteady has gone ahead and made the decision that they're killing the game. The game is not going to proceed any further, which doesn't surprise me because I don't think people are even playing it anymore, honestly. We never went back to it after we finished it, right?
No, we didn't. We didn't, and it's really unfortunate because we had so much hilarious fun.
Yeah.
It was a funny game. It was well written. People did take issue with the story itself, but you know, they were being comic book purists and things like that. But it was well voice acted and all these things. It was a well put together, creative endeavor. It just was incomplete. And you're right. We talked about it too. That was kind of the thing about this game is when the next season came out, we actually did say, "Hey, do y'all want to get back together and play this?" And we were all like, I got something else to do. Yeah, I'm playing something else now. I've already moved on. So the fact that they're killing it makes sense. I will say it again. We've said it about this game. We'll say it about others. If a game is a money grab, it won't work.
Yep. Well, it'll work to we should preface that it'll work to a certain extent, but it's not going to be a huge hit.
It's just not. I mean, you'll get some money. Power World did, right? And lose it all. Nintendo waited. And they're like, sure, go ahead. And
we're going to take you for everything.
Once you cool down a little bit, we're going to take all that Corvette you bought. Like, I'd be around.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's. So, yeah, it's it's I do still consider video games the highest order of entertainment, and I'm really hopeful that this causes some sort of pendulum swing where people get back to what Larian is doing and making games that, the CEO of Larian has said flat out, I'm here to make games that are good games.
Yeah. I mean,
So I hope they
I'm
get
a,
back to that.
I'm a firm believer at this point that it's not going to get to that. I don't think it's going to get better. I mean, when you think about the last year and a half, how many of these CEOs, CFOs, heads of marketing have made just incredibly tone deaf comments about the product that they're producing, and nobody's learning from it. And it unfortunately is one of those things. It's like I don't think they're going to learn from it. They're just going to keep doing what they do, and without any change. I think I'd like to believe it.
Maybe they will.
I'd like to believe it will happen, but I don't think it's going to. I really don't. So.
That's a bleak outlook, Hapa fodder.
and normally I am not a negative person. I really would like to see it, but when you have companies like the producer of Helldivers 2, like that game started out strong. Yeah. It was great with the community. The CEO was great. Sony basically crapped on them, essentially, destroying a lot of goodwill.
I read about that.
And unfortunately, I think that game suffered severely as a result of it. You got that. Larian is really Baldur's Gate 3 is really the only game that's, I think, been like the shining light in there, where they were like, look, this is what you get, this is what we're doing, and this is how it works, and it's been positive. I haven't heard anything really negative in that aspect, really.
We used to talk a lot about Helldivers. I never picked it up, but it was on my list because you played it. You went pretty hard in the paint on Helldivers.
Yeah.
And it was really, really well loved game, and that changed pretty quickly for them when Sony kind of Sony thing.
Sony crapping on them legitimately killed that game. It ended it because so many people left. Well, so many people left voluntarily and involuntarily, right? Because that was the other thing, was the folks that were in countries that Sony decided they weren't servicing lost their right to play the game. After they spent the money on the game. Oh, by the way, they didn't give them their money back. So that goodwill was pretty much burned. So
yeah, that was a mess. That was an absolute mess. I recall that. And then it might be fun. Maybe we should get 4 people together and play Baldur's Gate 3 on a couple of streams or something.
I'd be down.
That would be a hilarious amount of fun.
Yeah.
With the right folks. We could get Deacon because we'll just be rezzing him all the time, but it could be a lot of fun, right? There's just some. Maybe it's worth us pushing those games, because if you go like on Twitch and you look, there's still plenty of people playing Baldur's Gate 3 on streams, much less actually playing it if you look at stream numbers or Steam numbers and stuff like that. So, maybe maybe more people will look around and be like, hey, indie studios are worth supporting, because that's really where you're going to get, to your point. I don't think that people with the MBAs are going to look around and say, hey, maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the room, because that's not what people with MBAs generally do.
Right.
But the indie studios still make some really cool games. I had Dave the Diver, Dredge, right? There were some games this year that were really good. They were short, but they were really good games, and new and kind of original.
Yeah.
And you had a few of those games. We were talking about, we'll talk about this game a little bit later, but we were talking about Path of Exile 2.
Yep.
And I don't want to talk about that, but what I want to talk about is the counterpoint to that, which is Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Blizzard, unlimited money. Diablo 4 comes out. I loved Diablo 3, spent way too much time no-lifing that game, but the game just wasn't that great. So these big studios are just not getting it right. It's almost like they get in their own way too much and they can't get it right. And then you've got some indie studios who are out there just blowing the doors off. So maybe we'll see some good indie studios not get acquired and keep doing the indie studio thing. But then you have publishing rights, because that was Helldivers, right? Publishing rights, and Sony owned the publishing rights, and studio really had no control over how Sony decided to do distribution, and Sony screwed them on distribution. And I can't imagine the call, if I'm Helldivers 2, team, calling my person at Sony and being like, you serious right now? Like, I put 6 years of work or whatever it was into building this game, and the community loves it, and They're engaged and they love the live content. God, the live content was such a cool idea. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Well, I have a feeling, Hapa, that we shall continue to cover video games and talk about the video games
Oh,
industry
I'm sure.
as it moves forward. You can't really dodge it. So we have another thing that we talk about quite a bit on the podcast that we wanted to get to today. For context, historically, we do a lot of talking about social media. We have sometimes differing opinions, but very strong opinions in a lot of ways. And then a lot of opinions are very similar about social media and how it's being used and how it's impacting people. And an article came across that we were looking at on Ground News, which, by the way, we spend a lot of time looking at news articles, trying to dig up subjects. And we talk about this. It's hard and harder and harder and harder to not just go to a news site and fall into despair, right? Because these news sites, they want to snare you. They are trying to drive engagement. We use a couple of sites, but I have found that Ground News is a really good one to not get tangled up in that. So we were looking at Ground News, and this article comes across, and it's Australia is proposing a ban on all social media for people under 16 years old.
Yep.
And so this Anthony Albanese, who's the prime minister, has confirmed, hey, we're considering this. And basically all major social media platforms would have to find a way to exclude users younger than 16 within a year if this is signed. So the legislation is going to go before Parliament in the next little bit.
I think it was I think it was actually passed.
Did it get approved? I know that the session started November the 18th. Did it get approved?
Yeah, November 28th, Australia will ban children under 16 using social media.
Oh, they are going to do it.
After its parliamentary approval. So yeah, it's been passed. They're just waiting on Parliament to actually sign it into law. So, I mean, to me, this is a huge win. I honestly,
I agree.
How are you going to enforce it? I don't have that answer, but I mean, it's, I think it's pretty important that I think we've leaned too hard into social media over the last decade, if not last 20 years. I think it's been something we've definitely leaned way too hard into, for sure.
Yeah, I was having a conversation earlier this week. There's a news site out there that's a bunch of people. It seems like people feel like it's politically a liberal site that people are going to. It's called Blue Sky, and it's actually was started by the guys who started Twitter. So, but it's very Twitter-like, and it's federated, and it's different. And there's a lot of people moving over to that site and talking on it. And I was talking to someone, and they were saying, hey, this feels like the early days of Twitter. And having been through the early days of Twitter and Facebook, I remember how fresh that felt, and people were talking about interests rather than, divisive things. And it does. It feels like, I'm on there and I talk to people about fountain pens, right? Like it's those kinds of things right now. And the problem is, like any other social media site, they're going to have to find a way to make money to pay their bills. That is a reality of it. And social media in and of itself was never, it wasn't an evil thing.
Yeah.
When it first started out, and we were posting pictures of kittens and puppies and
right.
whatever. And that's what it was. And I remember people used to complain, it's like, no one wants to see your lunch. And it was like a meme, like, why are people posting pictures of food? That's so stupid. And it was a thing. But it feels now, in hindsight, those times feel so pure because it grew and grew and grew. Yeah. And it has become an engine for engagement where they want people to be on it as often as possible, and they want people to spend as much time as possible on it. And they have knowingly, and I say they, when I say they, I mean Facebook, I mean Twitter, I mean Instagram. I cannot exclude anyone in the social media space. Reddit's doing it now because they're a public company selling ads, right? Like all these companies, they want people to be on the site as often as possible, and they want them to spend as much time as possible on the site when they are on it. And that is specifically so they can serve them ads and make money. And to do this, they have engaged, knowingly engaged, in things that drive addictive behavior. They know they are doing it. As a society, we have learned how addiction works, starting with nicotine, heroin, opiates. right? We know very well how addiction works. Gambling, we know how it works. And these companies are knowingly using that to addict people. And then you go one level further, and they're knowingly using it to addict children who we know for certain do not have the developed discipline in their minds yet to resist the temptations of things like gambling and addiction. We know that. Like, it's not a question. We know it. And so these sites are absolutely engaging in that. They know they're engaging in that. They've been caught. No one seems to care. And Australia seems to be, California has talked about something, and we don't always agree on, California can get over legislative. I think both of us think that sometimes at different degrees.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're really glad someone out there is saying, hey, why don't we do something about this? So
yeah, at least someone's having the conversation.
I have 2 teenagers. I would love this. They don't use a lot of social media. I would love this. But what I described to you, is that the take you had too, where it went from being like social media was kind of cool, it got weird, and now it's like easy?
I mean, my start in social media was a little different than a lot of folks, because I literally got into social media purely to just be able to communicate with family when I was deployed or at sea or overseas, whatever. That was literally the only reason I got on social media. It was the quickest way to communicate with everybody where I was or what I was doing or what was going on without having to write 30 letters or a million emails or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So that was my take. But when I sit there and I look, and I mean, I still laugh about it. I told you, I think we're looking at 9 months ago, maybe, about how the engagement farming on Instagram, how you see a video that seems prolific or entertaining or whatever, and then the text is, I got you, man, the new Toyota Tundra or the new F-150, like something completely off the wall that has absolutely nothing to do with what was in the video. And that's purely people buying engagement, right? That's a bot post. Nothing from the actual page owner. Now, for me, I've just gotten in the habit of I block all those accounts. Like, so it could be an account that I really enjoy, but if you post that content, that to me means you're farming. I don't want to be involved in it, so I just block you and get out of it. But then the other side of it too is now with AI getting involved on social media, you've got people whose entire lives are on social media, and you have people literally getting into relationships or connecting in a intimate fashion on social media, and they may not even be connecting with a person. They're connecting with AI. You know what I mean? And our youth doesn't have the ability, like you said, they don't have the developmental capabilities to be able to juggle that crap or even understand necessarily what's going on there. Now, thankfully, for you, I don't think you have a lot of issues with it, because you have the most groaningest, the most grown. Yeah. I was trying to figure out a good word for it, but your kids are pretty damn mature for their ages, and they definitely show that and they see that. So I don't think you so much have a problem with that, but there is enough people out there that unfortunately social media is the babysitter.
Dude, okay, what you have just said, let's pause there for a second. I want to, yes, I would, let's, Louisiana sandwich, let's high five, right? Like, what I will say is, there was a time when the television became the babysitter.
Yep.
There was a time when video games became the babysitter. Now we're in a world where social media is the babysitter. And I agree with you 100%. It's a pacifier for teenagers.
Yeah.
And the behaviors that we end up seeing our kids engaged with, humans are meant to have a social group. 20 people is a large social group.
Yeah.
For humans. Imagine if I went through my day-to-day and I had 15 people tell me I look nice. Dude, I'd be on cloud 9.
Yeah.
On social media, 15 people telling you look nice is bad.
Yeah.
Because if it ain't 100, what are you even doing, right?
Yeah,
It is this insane drive for affirmation and these platitudes and this fakeness, and these poor kids don't know the difference.
Yeah.
And so we had a conversation once, and I think Jim was actually here for this, but we were having a conversation once about how magazines used to Photoshop people, and it became a whole, it's like, oh, that's unrealistic standards and whatnot. Well, now we have literally AI generated humans that are perfect. We have, Photoshop. Sure, we still have that, but we have all these fake situations. It's not a photograph. It's like, look at my house, look at my car, look at my private jet. Right? These things are. I saw a study, Hapa, dude. We did not talk about this. I saw a study where there was an interview, a survey done, and they talked to people in different generations and said, how much money do you have to make every year to be considered successful? Do you know what the number was for Generation Z?
I'm at 300,000.
So boomers were 100,000. I think that's pretty. We could have guessed that. That seemed to be like a standard number. Kind of went up from there a little bit. You had 120, 130, $867,000.
That's a very specific number.
That was the number that I read, and that was what they said. Well, I mean, to be considered a success, every year you need to make at least this much.
Well, I mean, we talked about this when we were in Mobile. I think I mentioned it to you. It was a national study. They asked teenagers that were in high school what they want to do when they get out of high school, and the most sought-after job or response was become famous or become an influencer. That was the response. It used to be astronaut, firefighter, law enforcement, engineers. Now it's content creator, influencer, famous. I just want to be famous. And I didn't intend to segue for the subject we're gonna talk about here shortly, but I mean, it's a pretty damn clear-cut show of the decline of society, in my opinion, when the majority of your kids are making the decision that they want to be TikTok famous as their career. I mean, let's be honest. TikTok famous, Instagram famous, Twitch famous, whatever famous, OnlyFans famous, that stuff is only going to take you so far. It really is. You're only going to, it's only going to last so long.
How many Jake Pauls do we really need, Hapa?
We could use one less than we already have. I'll tell you that right now.
Yes,
Jesus.
I concur. And, I mean, the think about the methods that you're talking about. So someone says, I want to be famous. I want to be internet famous, right? The methods people are using to become that are not chasing clout. There's a few predictable ways to get there, and I sure as hell don't want my daughter taking any of those ways. I don't want my son running down that path, right? I did see, I don't know if you saw it. You might get a kick out of this. I saw this influencer, right, who is one of these guys on TikTok or whatever who gets off on walking up and randomly punching people.
Oh, God, yeah.
So he was in South Korea, and he was like, oh, Korea, come at me. Korea, keep trash talking. Someone did. And
a Korean Special Forces guy.
Yeah. Oh, someone did. And the absurdity of, I go around Korea punching people because that's how I make my money. We're in idiocracy, and Mike Judge somewhere is like, I told you guys.
Any platform, any platform that is okay with that content being on their platform, in my opinion, is just as culpable as the person doing it. In my opinion.
Oh, well, we'll repeat this, Hapa.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Being banned is the only thing Joe Biden and Donald Trump agree on.
Yeah, for sure. Probably different reasons, but
But they agree.
Don't matter.
I mean, this is how we unify America.
Oh my God. To me, it's like
social media is.
You've got content creators out there that are literally selling their bodies. You got content creators out there that are, in my opinion, selling their souls, doing stupid shit like that guy. Essentially causing cultural damage.
Yeah. Well, you got your 100%. 100%.
To me, it's, at some point we've got to take a step back and be like, maybe we need to reevaluate this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to detour too far over, but I've always heard a lot of folks that talk about how, and it always makes me laugh because a lot of times, no offense to those of you in Europe, but I hear it all the time. You know what your problem with America is? It's like, no, I assure you, we as Americans know what the problem with America is. We don't need other people to tell us.
It's
problem
the squirrel
is
population.
Exactly, and it's not my raccoons. It's not my raccoons.
It's squirrels. We're perfectly aware our biggest problem is squirrels. Yes,
but like the issue is, I think it still goes back to the whole corporate thing, because it's like, oh, this guy's going around punching Japanese people. That wasn't received too well, so he went to Korea, and now he's getting more ratings, which is making us more money. I don't care if he got knocked out by a Korean Special Forces guy. Let him keep doing it. Like, are you hearing yourself? Like, are you actually hearing yourself? Like, seriously.
Right.
Like,
Is there anything we won't do? And the answer seems to be no, for what it's worth. Is there anything we won't do for money?
Oh.
The answer seems to be no.
Now, I will tell you,
social media is the worst of it.
I will tell you,
now.
let some of these idiots go to some of these other countries, like in the Middle East and stuff, and pull some of that crap and see what happens. Like, I don't know if you saw the news article about it about 6 to 9 months ago, maybe. There was a woman that she and a bunch of friends went to Dubai, and they went to rent a car at a car rental place. Dubai, everyone knows there's a lot of money. I think she tried to rent some kind of Mercedes SUV or something. They didn't have it, so they gave her a different thing. This social media famous person thought she knew better than the gentleman on the other side of the counter, so she started screaming and yelling at him, which, by the way, in Dubai...
So a woman in the Middle East starts screaming at a
guy, and if you know anything about cultural differences, you don't do that in the Middle East. It sounds sexist, but if you're a woman, you don't haul off like you might hear at 7-Eleven out here in frickin' Podunk, Texas, or whatever. You don't haul off like that. Guess what happened to her? She went to frickin' jail. They arrested her ass, and her sentence wasn't like, oh, you're in jail for 2 weeks. No, she got like 6 years in jail.
Are you serious?
I swear to God.
6 years.
And by the way, jail over there isn't like jail over here. Jail over there is not a pleasant place. If you're in jail in the Middle East, it's not probably somewhere you want to be, right? So
yeah.
I don't know what the resolution of the whole thing was, because the last time I heard, the State Department actually was getting involved, which I hate to tell you, but if I was in the State Department, I would have been like, sorry, y'all on your own. Like, you screwed yourself.
Now we have a Karen clause.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds like sounds like you're in the FO part of the FO.
And I do think the State Department wouldn't be wrong if they went to Dubai or whatever country it was and said, no, you're fine, keep her, kind of thing,
Make it 12.
Like,
Make it 12, yeah. Nah, she kind of FAFO'd.
And
we like telling the story. We like telling the story to our kids around Thanksgiving to make them act right.
And I don't know the citizenship of the gentleman that was in Korea. That's, by the way, he's still doing this crap. I don't know if he's an American or I know his name, but I'm not going to say it on air. You guys can Google it if you'd like. But if I was a State Department in that one too, I would probably go to Korea and say, no, you guys are fine. You guys do whatever you need to do to handle this issue. Like, we don't need him.
Yeah, sure.
We don't need to.
Sure. Like,
you don't need to send him back. We don't want him back. Like,
Well, the video evidence people are creating of themselves doing things.
Yeah.
I think there just has to be a limit at some point, and obviously we haven't gotten there yet. We will we will get there, right? There is a limit to how much reasonable humans are going to put up with from people who are acting like fools. There is a limit, and I think Australia banning, looking at, hey, we're going to ban social media for people under 16. Is it going to actually happen? No. To Weirdbeard's point in chat here, it's really not something you can effectively police. But if you say, hey, parents, it's illegal for your kids to be on social media if they're under 16, at least you're sending a message that says your kids shouldn't be just using social media all the time, right? So at least someone's trying to do something.
Well, and to be clear,
I'm curious to see how it works.
in countries like Australia or the UK or in some European countries, the parents are held accountable for their kids' actions.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's true.
that could end up being a big deal to those parents.
Isn't that a novel idea, huh?
Interesting that parents should be held accountable for their kids' actions? Yeah, I find that.
Yeah, the
quite
jackass
interesting.
lady at Walmart the other night could learn something from that.
Indeed.
Your kid's being an asshole. I'm gonna hold you accountable right now for that. Right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have a problem with that, to be honest with you, because, I mean, in my opinion, well, guess what? Your kids are a DNA representation of you, so they probably have some of your personality traits.
my dad made it very clear to me as a youngster, you represent me.
Yeah.
And if you do that poorly, we will address that.
Yeah. We'll have a
So-
conversation. A conversation will occur.
Yeah, we will address that directly. So I kind of knew, like, that's kind of the thing. It is an interesting thing. People don't have a lot of respect these days, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I hope Australia gets more publicity around it. And in today's news cycle world, we won't hear much about it unless we go seek it out. So we'll try to keep an eye on it. Anyone who's watching and potentially listening on the podcast later, we'll try to keep an eye on it and keep you updated as what's going on in Australia. But at least someone's trying. So, Hapa, we are to what is probably my favorite part of every podcast that we do. What you watching, Hapa?
Oh man, I've been waiting for this for months.
I know, I'm excited. I'm excited.
No, there's been a lot of shows that have been coming out or we've been waiting on seasons to get released that I've been excited about. One of them, right away, we'll get it out the door right now. Silo, season 2 of Silo.
God.
I have been saying this for several years, for the 2 years that we've been doing this podcast now. If you don't have Apple TV, it is the one streaming service that I 100% advocate people get, because it's $11 a month and it's worth every damn penny. There are shows on Apple TV and movies that will blow your socks off, like in terms of quality. And Silo is one of them. Is her name Sarah Ferguson? No. Is that her name?
Rebecca Ferguson.
Rebecca
the
Ferguson.
actress? Rebecca
Yeah.
Ferguson, yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson is
Look, I
the
would watch
lead
Rebecca
actress
Ferguson
in that show.
in literally anything. She is
To be clear,
amazing.
yeah, to be clear, it's kind of like Jennifer Connelly. I'll watch her in anything as well. It could be.
We have covered that before.
Yeah, we have covered that. She could be.
You
She
turn
could
into
be
a puddle
pruning. She could be pruning bushes for an hour and a half, and I'll sit there and watch it. But no, from a sci-fi standpoint, Silo is an amazing show. They do just the right to give you a little bit of premise of the show. It's literally a civilization living in, guess what? A silo underground, and you don't really know what happened. You don't know really why they're there, but there's tens of thousands of people living in this silo, and they're trying to figure out what's going on outside. They've been down there long enough that no one knows what's happening above ground, and this whole story is unfolding. And let me tell you, man, this show is so freaking good, man. It is so good. The storytelling, the special effects, everything. The actors that they picked for it,
The
actresses.
cinematography.
Oh, man.
I was reading something online, and I will be very careful not to give spoilers, because I do encourage people to go watch this show.
Yeah.
But I was reading something online where people with a certain type of television that was not OLED, and they were like, "Oh, it's too dark, right? It's
Yeah.
hard to see things."
Yeah.
I don't have that issue on the screen that I watch it on. And what I will say is the attention to detail and set design, right? I'm not trying to get super artsy. I like movies. I like shows. But my goodness, when I notice how good the set design is, you've done something.
Yeah.
And the set design is stunning. It's a silo. They made a comment in one of them, I haven't walked 130 feet straight in my entire life. They've never been able to walk straight because it's a big round silo.
Yeah.
And the amount of work that goes into feeling that constant claustrophobia is just unbelievable. it's just a really fantastic show. It's incredibly acted. It's well written.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to look at. It's interesting as a concept. Rebecca Ferguson, right? It's just
Yeah.
great. Tim Robbins, right, as
Yep.
well. Like
Yeah.
it's just a really, really, really great cast. Good show. Again, can't recommend it more. But like you said, Apple TV Plus is just hit. Severance is coming soon.
Yeah.
The next season of Severance. Ben Stiller's been like teasing it everywhere, and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't wait.
New season
All
of
these shows
Foundation's
see-
coming.
Foundation, yes.
Yeah.
There's just so much good on there, so much good content.
Yeah.
If you're gonna only have one streaming service, I agree. I think that's the one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a sci-fi nerd too, that's the other thing. Now, don't get me wrong. On Apple TV, there's a whole slew of shows that aren't sci-fi. But if you're a sci-fi nerd, Apple TV has, I think, almost a like ownership of the sci-fi realm in terms of streaming. There are a few. One of them we'll talk about here shortly, but there's
You've
been
got like
amazing.
The Expanse, right?
Yeah.
You've got a couple
Oh, yeah.
here and there.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you can
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about other places, but yeah, on the whole, I agree with you. Like Apple's got a. Obviously, they put some effort into saying we want to be in this space.
I mean, if you get Apple, let's say you don't have Apple TV now and you got it today, you could spend the rest of the week into Sunday watching all these different sci-fi shows and probably not run out. I really think
Oh, yeah.
so.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
it's that good. But yeah, Silo season 2 just started up. The other thing I kind of like, but I also loathe, I have to say this about streaming services, is they release one episode every week. That is the byproduct of a streaming world that we live in today, right? We're used to being able to
Yeah.
binge watch shows. But it is good that they do that too, because it keeps me coming back to the streaming
Yeah,
service.
yeah.
So that's
it works.
good. Yeah.
It works. Unfortunately, it works.
The other show that Seven and I kind of talked about that I'm a big, huge nerd of because I've read all the books and I'm like super hardcore into the lore and everything is Dune Prophecy. Dune
Yeah.
Prophecy
Yeah.
on Max? It's on Max.
It's on
which
Max,
is
correct.
Which is like the HBO Cinemax combination streaming service. Dune Prophecy is 10,000 and some odd years before the movies that are just being released now, which, by the way, they're working on a third and fourth movie right now simultaneously. So you've got to have 2 more epic movies coming. But Dune Prophecy is meant to be 10,000 years before all that and literally shows, I've said it before, I'm a sucker for an origin story. It shows the origin story of all the great houses and kind of how spice played into things and all of that. And it's well before a lot of the tech and everything. I think you kind of need to know some of the lore and story to kind of understand what's going on in this show.
I agree. I agree with that.
But at the same time, the drama of the show is very early Game of Thrones-esque. So it's great if you like that. It's a great show. I really love it.
I'm a big fan of the books. I've read 3, but also the movies for sure. And what I will say I like about the show, so that people don't get the wrong idea of what it is, it's 10,000 years before, right? And it's a lot of information about the Bene Gesserit. So you do need to know
Yeah.
a little bit about what that is and what that world means. But it's far more about the political intrigue that goes along
Yeah.
with that universe. And one of the things that when I mentioned The Expanse earlier, one of the things, so The Expanse was originally on Sci-Fi, got canceled by Sci-Fi. Amazon picked it up. Amazon finished up the show, and it's done now. But one of the things about The Expanse that I wish they had done more work in was the political intrigue portion,
Yeah.
because the books are like, that's a thing, and political intrigue is what drives the entire every action in the universe is driven by that political intrigue. And so one of the cool things that the Dune show is doing is really focusing on like these great houses and a lot of the things that you hear about in the movies, you do read about in the books a little bit, but
Yeah.
you're actually seeing it in the show and they're fleshing it out, and I absolutely love it. I love the entire concept of the Bene Gesserits, right? Like, no spoilers here, Space Witch, right? Like,
Yeah.
no spoilers. So it's a really cool. Again, no spoilers, but the Dune universe is unique in that the primary law of the Dune universe is no thinking machines. So this goes really a little bit deeper into that, and I think it gives all of the Dune stories a really interesting angle to take, which is the machines can't be the whole story.
Yeah.
And you see that in so much sci-fi where it's like, oh, the androids and the whatever was about. Why would anybody not use an android?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
It's like, and Dune doesn't have to do that because they've made it illegal to have these things. And so, very interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. I'm glad you brought that one up. I'm glad you're watching it. We could talk about that off
then the next show that I highly recommend people to watch, Landman on Amazon Prime, has Billy Bob Thornton in it. Billy Bob Thornton, we were talking about this a little bit earlier today when I was streaming, that for me, he's hit or miss in shows, but you can tell when there's a character written that he likes because he usually hits it out of the park. And Landman is one of those. He plays an oil company landman. Those are the folks that basically know everything about the oil field, how things work. They organize everything. They run everything. They're the ones that, draft up the contracts, do all the negotiations with landowners, because a lot of these oil pumps are put on, leases on people's land and what have you. And in Texas, at least, you got some involvement with cartels and stuff like that. And let me tell you, Billy Bob Thornton nails exactly how a dirty, gruff Texan oil worker, in my opinion, would sound, talk, act, eat, chain smoke, alcoholic,
So he's playing Billy Bob Thornton.
He's 100% playing. To give you an idea, one of the early scenes, he's drinking Michelob Light, and the guy's like, the bartender's like, hey, you want a whiskey? He's like, no, man, I quit drinking. I'm an alcoholic. Just give me a Michelob, or give me a light. And the guy's like, you do know that Michelob Light has alcohol in it, right? And he's like, listen here, son. I drink 6 whiskeys right now. I'll tell you right now, you can tell if I've had 6 whiskeys. But I drink 6 of these beers, you're not going to have any clue that I drank 6 beers. And the bartender's basically like, yeah, fair enough. So, and there's a couple references throughout the show where he talks about, I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. Give me a Michelob Light.
Give me a beer.
Yeah. So.
And you said this is on, what is this on?
Amazon Prime.
What service? Amazon Prime. Okay.
It's definitely worth the watch. It's got, I can never remember her name, Ali Larder in it. She plays, again, exactly what I kind of... Wow. Yeah, she embodies what I would kind of think of in terms of a gruff Texas woman that's kind of money grubbing, kind of. She's made her life based around the men that she gets in relationships with. It's got Ham. What's the guy's name? Something Ham.
John Hamm?
John Hamm.
From Mad Men?
Yep. John Hamm's in there. There's a bunch of actors in there that are great. It's just well acted. It's a great story. It's good drama. The thing that I like about it is it also educates you. So there's a scene in there, and you've probably seen clips on it talking about social media where they're talking about windmills and stuff like that. And Billy Bob Thornton goes on a rant about how much of a waste windmills are, how much petroleum is in everything that we do. He goes through a list of clothing that you wear, containers that you put everything in, all of your cars, all your tires, the asphalt you drive on. Literally, the freaking windmills themselves are made out of petroleum products, and he was like, if wind power was the wave of the future, oil companies would be dumping billions of dollars into them, not into trying to pump more oil out of the ground. It's kind of one of those things. He kind of goes on a rant, talks about it, but he makes a good argument. It's a really good understanding of why the oil companies are the way they are, why they're so rich, and everything. But it's worth the watch, in my opinion. There's some scenes in it that are pretty heart-wrenching because some people pass away, and so they kind of show the gruff, scary side of the work that's done on the oil fields and what have you and everything. It's just a good show. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Cool. I have to add that to my list.
If you want to switch sides and go to the I like guns and want to shoot things, Lioness.
Oh, no. Okay. Lioness. I saw an advertisement for Lioness. What is that? What service is that on?
Lioness is also on Prime. It
Okay.
is literally about the CIA QRF, Quick Reaction Force. They're basically their special forces. Lioness program was actually a real thing it may exist still. I don't know if it does or not, but they stood that up during the Iraq War. Essentially, it's a special operations group that typically will have women in the group, and the women's job is, for lack of a better explanation, they're a distraction, but they're also special operators, so they can take care of a problem if they're in the middle of it. Zoe Saldana's in there. Nicole Kidman's in there. What else? Who else is in there? It's just a good show. It is written by the same guy that wrote Yellowstone. Taylor. Oh, I can never remember his last name. Taylor Sheridan.
Gotcha.
He's the same guy that wrote Yellowstone and a bunch of other shows too. Well worth the watch. I think it's a good show. It kind of shows the political intrigue of how we deal with the Middle East in season 1. Season 2 is the interaction between our government and the Mexican government and the border crisis, et cetera, et cetera. And I hate to say it, but it kind of brings in some of the reality of the issues that we have with the open border policy that we've had for so long. Kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just a good show. But shifting gears, Rita and I went and saw Gladiator 2 a few days ago.
Oh yeah. You kids went to the movies.
Yeah, we did. We had a date night. We went and saw Gladiator 2 and
That's
had dinner. I will say this about Gladiator 2: you don't need to go see it in the theater.
Okay.
You don't need to go see it.
What's the?
It's worth, if you want to go watch a movie, do the thing, you can do it, but you're gonna get the same experience out of watching it at home. I think
Okay.
I am a huge, the running joke that men talk about Rome, and and that's like they're on their minds always. I actually, when I was going for my college degree back in the day, history was my major, specifics to Roman and Greek history. So I
didn't know that.
I have like a wealth of knowledge up here that has to do with Rome and the emperors and what have you. And one of the things I loved about the first Gladiator is there was almost every single person in that movie is a historical figure, like actual based off of historical figures. This one, they kind of base it around historical figures, but this is also a very turbulent time in Rome's history where they're literally falling apart. So the history wasn't clean. It wasn't written really well. So there's a lot of guessing going on. I don't know how Rita felt, but I just felt like this movie, they tried way too hard to make it have a connection to the first, and it kind of ruined it for me. So, but it's a movie. It's a movie. It was.
I mean, we'll watch it. I'm gonna watch it when it comes out.
Yeah.
If I can get it at home, we have a great situation for we all sit we have one of those huge couches and we all sit and we hang out with the dogs and watch a movie. We'll do it there. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say it's not a bad movie. It's just the first Gladiator was like an event. Like that movie, come on, man.
That's really, So my sister and my brother-in-law went and saw it, and he is a huge fan of the first movie. And I mean, huge fan. And he had similar feelings that you're expressing, where he was like, it was a fun movie. You want to watch an entertaining movie, but as a huge fan of Gladiator,
Yeah.
That's kind of what he was like. It's a fun thing, but I was.
Yeah.
What made me love Gladiator did not make me love Gladiator 2. Is kind of how he put it.
Yeah, I can see that. Is basically what I would say. Like my two favorite movies are Gladiator and Kingdom of Heaven. Like those two movies for me on a Okay, off topic, sorry. If you get a chance, go watch the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven. It's like another hour longer than the actual movie.
Much?
Yeah, it's like a 3.5 hour movie. But holy crap, it is a completely different movie when you watch the director's cut. So much better, so much more historically accurate, so much more stuff makes sense. But anyway, Go watch it. Just go watch it. It's on Amazon. Go rent it. It's good. But yeah, Gladiator 2. I think the take on Gladiator 2 is correct. It's a movie. It's just.
It's a movie.
It's a movie. What you hearing, Mr. Seven?
Oh man. So for anyone listening on the podcast or watching here on YouTube, I put together new music playlists every Friday of the year until we get into the middle of November, when it turns into Christmas music, and then I stop doing that. However, we have an absolute
What? No
gem.
Michael Bublé for you?
Dude, it's Harry Connick Jr. ride or die. Bublé is a poser. No, I just don't. I think people can find Christmas albums on their own.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But we have an absolute gem that has come out in late November, and it's by an artist named John Baptiste. And if you're not familiar with John Baptiste, he is a pianist in the simplest way of saying it, but he is New Orleans music royalty and has contributed to the world of music at a level that would be really, really, really hard to overstate. So if you're curious, you should look up John Baptiste. Well, John Baptiste has released an album called Beethoven Blues, where he tackles a bunch of Beethoven songs.
Oh,
And
man.
of course shows the chops, which are he can play Beethoven, right? At a virtuoso level.
Yeah.
But he plays it like a Baptiste would play Beethoven. And it's one of the more entertaining. It's just piano. Well, I would say it's just piano. It's piano and him yelling occasionally. Just getting into the music and being like, oh, like that kind of stuff. So it's an incredibly entertaining listen. Jim and I have actually been having a conversation about what I think are super well produced, good sounding albums. And we've been going back and forth talking about that. And I am still compiling a list because that feels like oh my God, let's take it seriously. But one of the hardest things to do is record an acoustic piano well. And people don't realize how hard that is.
Yeah.
But think about how big you can picture a grand piano, right? You can picture that now. Now picture a microphone, right? Like, I'm gonna hold one up for any one of the podcasts. I'm sorry, but I'm holding up a Shure SM58, which is what Hapa's actually using right now.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty standard microphone. Now, how in the world am I gonna get the entire sound of a piano on this thing?
Yeah.
Right? If I use this microphone, I'm gonna have to point it at some of the strings in the piano, and I'm only gonna get those strings. So recording and producing a piano is really hard. You use something called ribbon mics usually, but what I will say is when it's done well, the piano has a personality. And so this album itself, it's Beethoven songs done with a bunch of really cool jazz and blues riffs in the midst of it. It's John Baptiste, and it's an immaculately recorded piano. So yeah, I would say if you like classical music or piano music or just things that are a little bit offbeat, I would say listen to it. I will also say my daughter's friend was here when the album came out. She was here at my house, sitting over there on the couch just next to the studio here. And I was like, hey, check this out. It's John Baptiste. No one cares that it's John Baptiste. I'm a nerd, right? No one knows who John Baptiste is. But I was like, oh, this is so good. So I turned it up. And she was like, oh, I don't like that. I like it when they play them the right way. And I was like,
oh, Lord, here we go.
So if you're a purist about Beethoven songs, it's going to offend you. But if you're a purist about Beethoven songs, shut up. So yeah, I would say John Baptiste.
And it should be also said that I could never hear that name without saying the rest of the name. But you know what?
So I said he saw this album. And what is it? Tell me what you said.
Jean Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg.
The level of reference that is, right? I was like, wow, you came out of nowhere with that.
Look, man, it's Gary Oldman.
That's quite the.
It's Gary Oldman.
That's quite the. That's true. It is. It is Gary Oldman. I did not.
I can't deliver it nearly as amazing as Gary Oldman delivers it, but yeah.
Yeah, talk about another show.
Hell
Slow
yeah.
Horses.
Oh
Don't
man,
understand it. We talked about that on the podcast several times. But Gary
yeah.
Oldman is in that. He's amazing.
That's another Apple
Amazing
production,
show.
by the way. That's a spy show that, again, it's not sci-fi, but you gotta go watch it. You should watch it if you're not watching that.
I will tell you. Let's say this just as a fun little thing here, Hapa. If you were to say, okay, I'm going to convince you to get Apple TV for a month, because almost anywhere, there's lots of places you can get 30 days for free.
Yeah.
What
I think
is
they do a week.
one show?
I think Apple does a
Is it a
week.
week?
I think a week trial. Yeah.
So let's say someone goes out and grabs it. What is the first show of all the things you've seen?
Well, first of all, take a week off of work.
That's fair, and watch them all.
See, that's the problem though, because if you like sci-fi, Foundation, Silo, God, there's just so many we've talked about this past year. Foundation and Silo alone.
What is the one? If you had to tell somebody what one show, I can see an argument for Severance. I can see an argument for Silo. I can see an argument for Slow Horses for sure.
Honestly,
but Slow Horses may be the
I think
most
Slow Horses is
broadly-
it. I think Slow Horses is
like
it.
if I don't know your preferences, Slow Horses might be the one that's most likely to hit the most people. It is
Slow
such a great
Horses
show.
has action, it has comedy, it has gruff like farting
it's funny.
in it.
It's-
It's got comedy. It's got Gary Oldman. Come on, like alone.
It's got
That
London.
alone. It's got London.
It's got-
I mean, it's just a damn good show, and it's well done.
Yeah.
It's well produced. It's well shot. It's just a good show. And so, if you're not even a sci-fi nerd, like you don't even need to, you know, you don't need to watch Apple TV for sci-fi, right? There's just show after show after show on there in general that's just
and
damn good.
and when I first brought up Apple TV to you, because I'm pretty proud of this, because you're not
Ted
an Apple guy.
Lasso.
You're actually Ted Lasso. You're actually the anti-Apple guy. And
I
I'll
hate
never
Apple
forget,
crap.
Right?
iCrap
And
is
I
what I
brought up
call it. iCrap.
And I was like, you got to check this out. And you're like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it was a lot of
No.
harumping. Yeah.
There was so much harumping, and then you checked it out, and now you're the guy like, look, seriously, guys.
I'm all in, man. Don't ask me to buy an iPhone or any other iCrap, but Apple TV, I'm sold. I'm sold for sure.
I'm here for that. Yeah. And I would say, for real, if you're just gonna get it for a week, get the free week. Slow Horses is probably top. If you want to see a series that's finished, C is one. But yeah, Slow Horses to me, Gary Oldman is just so unbelievable in that.
You know what's a hit for me though with Apple above everything else? It's $11 a month.
Yeah. Cheaper.
$11 a month, and there's no commercials. Amazon Prime now shows you commercials. So
Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. Dude, we were watching Rings of
Yeah.
Power.
yeah,
Trying to watch
It's
Rings
like
of
every
Power.
5 minutes.
Now, I am convinced. Now I am convinced. I am convinced that Prime, the commercial runs and the show doesn't pick back up where it stopped. I am convinced
Yeah, no,
the show
it doesn't.
keeps running
yeah.
in the back.
They're,
And you miss
they
2
have
minutes.
some kind of algorithm or program that runs ads, and it sometimes stops a show, sometimes doesn't. It. Rita and I were watching a movie. This was like a long time ago, but it literally was. It was playing the same scene over and over and over, and then it would play a freaking commercial. And you can't fast forward or rewind to get to where you need to catch up, because when you do
Oh my
that,
gosh.
guess what happens? Amazon plays another set of commercials.
Are you serious?
So
Oh.
we were just stuck in this loop of watching commercials. So I was like, you know what? We're just not watching the show. Just, oh well. Yeah. We had this with Lioness. Matter of fact, last night, the show got to a point where it's like a natural cut for a commercial, which, by the way, Amazon Prime, because I'm sure you're watching the podcast, I don't know why you do this, but you literally put...
Yeah,
you put-
Bezos.
right? You put commercial cutscenes in your show, so the screen fades to
Right.
black like you would put, but your commercials don't go with them. Your commercials are elsewhere. So Rena and I were watching Lioness. It cut to black like it was gonna run a commercial, and then it started playing the next scene, right? And then the commercials actually played, and when we came back, it was credits. I was like, so you literally played a commercial to cut me to credits? Excuse me? Like, what the hell? Like, what is
Dude,
that crap?
That's next level. That's next level. They got you. They got. I mean, they're just trolling us. Oh, you pay for Amazon Prime? How about an ad?
We were talking about
make a point not to buy a product because you showed it to me.
Oh, and I'll tell you right now, when Amazon does it, I won't say if, I'll say when, because we talked about this today on stream too. I bet you it's coming that Amazon is going to break their Prime Video away from Amazon Prime. I bet you. Mark my words. I promise you it's going to become a separate streaming service that you're going to have to pay for. I bet you. And that'll be the day that I just say, well, not watching any more Amazon shows because I'm not paying for Amazon Prime and paying for your video service and getting commercials. Like, we're not doing that.
They don't have enough of a, I mean, they've got some good stuff, but their catalog would be hard to justify if you're going to be like, no, I've got to go do it separately. I agree.
But I bet you it's going to happen. And that's one of the main reasons why I talk up Apple TV so much, because it's $11 a month and you have no commercials and the shows are top notch. It doesn't matter what it is.
The quality is really is on point. So
yeah.
All right, Hapa. So probably this could go a while, and I'm here for it. What you playing, Hapa?
Man, okay. So we know the usual subjects. New World hasn't been, so I talked up last month. New World was like my thing I came back to. It was really nice to come back to it. The game feels now like it should have at release, but unfortunate thing with New World is you have a burst of content, you play for a little while, you hit the end game content, and you kind of peter off, right? That's pretty normal, I feel like, in a lot of games. But Path of Exile 2 released a few weeks ago, and that game is in early release right now.
They told you, though. They told you.
Aha! They actually said it's early release, but the game is the game is actually really, 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 really good. It's good quality. It's to me, and you'll hear people say, well, it's like Diablo 2. To me, it's like Dungeon Siege, the original Dungeon Siege, and Diablo 2 had a baby. It's really good. It's better than Diablo 4. Diablo 4, to be clear, is a damn good game for the first 48, 50 hours. After about a weekend, when you hit endgame content, you're done.
Yeah.
It's just rinse and repeat after that.
No one touches, let's own it, no one touches Blizzard's cinematics.
Yeah, hands down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good. And I do think for Diablo 4, I went back and played the patch after they were like, hey, guys, we fixed everything. Come play the thing. And it was like, yeah, you did great, but now I don't care.
Yeah, it's too late now.
So I played Last Epoch, so I do like the ARPG format, Last Epoch. I know a couple people who are devs there, and they're great folks, and that's a very small team trying to do something cool. And then Path of Exile, which is really the 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
And I've watched some people stream Path of Exile 2, and it looks brutal, but it looks gorgeous, right? It is a really good-looking game, and people do seem to be really, really liking it.
I'm one of those people that will play games like that, and if I get to a boss that's just too challenging, I just throw my hands in the air and I'm done, and I move on to something else. And Path of Exile 2, I feel like, is just the right amount of challenging, but not too challenging. Like, if I'm able to kill bosses without really worrying too much, or I may wipe once or twice and I learn from my mistakes and I go on and I do fine. I don't normally stay engaged with games that are like that, but this game has been great because the loot drop system seems comfortable, which it's almost too strict, but they're actually listening to a lot of player feedback and they're making a bunch of tweaks to the drop model and everything, and a lot of quality of life improvements are being added to the game. That big patch coming. It's just a good game. I mean, and then beyond that, how you can personalize your character to gameplay. Like I told Seven before the podcast, I was like, Path of Exile doesn't have a skill tree. It has a skill star map.
Oh.
Like it's a legitimate, looks like a star map. Like it's insane the amount of different directions you could go and skills and stuff. And I mean, I spent an hour the other day just hovering over a bunch of skills and I didn't even get through all of them. I was just like, what? I don't even know what all's in there. You know what I mean? But so I like that ability to personalize a little bit more. As with most games like that, if you play in a group of friends, the enemies get scaled a little higher, so it does get a little bit difficult if you're playing in a group and you're not all really carrying your own, the same weight. But thus far, it's been a good game. I think it's been fun. So, and it's a beautiful game. They've done a great job with the graphics and everything.
It's gorgeous.
And
I mean, I think of the team. It's Grinding Gears, right? That's who makes.
Yep. Yeah.
Path of Exile. Yeah. I think the team there will get it right, and I have a high level of confidence in that team. So, much like the game that I'm playing right now, or where I'm in early access on, there are certain companies I would have faith in, or I'd be willing to give a little bit of money to and say, hey, you know what, I will participate in knowingly testing your game. This is what we were talking about earlier. And so Path of Exile 2 is definitely one I would consider. And I've been playing, I started yesterday for a few hours, Eve Frontier. And, it was funny because Weirdbeard here in chat on YouTube called it Bitcoin Eve. And there's been a lot made about Eve Frontier using blockchain technologies and cryptocurrency technologies and things, and I think maybe a little bit more was made about that than CCP, which is the game company that makes Eve, would have intended. It's just an underlying set of technologies. But what's interesting about Eve Frontier is they really are trying to sandbox. What I loved about Eve Online originally is the intention of the game was to be a sandbox. You played Eve, I played Eve.
Yeah.
We both loved it. We never played together. I did play with Weirdbeard, right? But you and I never played together. But that game had a unique attraction and allure. It's a sandbox that is very open and you can do whatever you want. And the folks at CCP are trying to take that a step further with Eve Frontier and pushing it into more of a nomadic style experience in the Eve universe. And so what I will say is I'm excited to try it out. I'm excited to work through the testing and see how the game goes. In one evening of playing, I gathered resources, which in Eve is mining, went to a station, I'm trying to build something, and it really reminded me what I fell in love with about Eve the first time, which is the amount of time and energy and just pure thought you can put into just building something, right? And it doesn't have to always be super intense fighting, right? As a chill game, which I always need to have at least one game that lets me chill, it's been really interesting. So I think you and I both, it's funny that as much as we talked earlier about, game companies who do buggy releases and stuff, and both of us are willing to put money, because both of these early access cost money.
Yeah.
Right. Neither of those is free. We're willing to put in money if you tell us, hey guys, this is a test scenario. If you want to come participate in the test, here's how you do it. Both of us have chosen to do so.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, is if a company comes out and straight up is honest, hey, there's probably bugs. We're trying to work through them. We're not perfect, and this is early access. This is the actual release. I'll give it a go, but don't come at me with your AAA title and then blame it on the player base, the devs being burnt out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't come at it from that point of view, because you're going to instantly be like, I'm not even thinking about buying your game. This ain't going to happen.
For me, and we can close on this, but the head of monetization at one of the top gaming companies on earth making a comment that we didn't make money because players are bad people, or however it got said, right, is just like peak. That is peak ego. And I am just like, all right, the less of that we can have.
My response will be simply, you're right, and you're not going to get more money from me. Like, it's just the way
as the head of monetization for it was what was the movie Major League, when the relief pitcher was like, I'm not going to pitch, and the coach is like, it's fine, we'll put you in. He's like, well, I'm not going to strike anybody out. And he's like, I'll put you in anyway. And he's like, what's the going rate for a pitcher that can't strike nobody out?
Exactly. Yeah.
Nothing. So like, sure, if you want to blame the players for Ubisoft's sucking wind on Assassin's Creed 96.5, right? But
oh my God,
go ahead. Or try something new. You never know. Maybe it'll work out.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the same thing with Suicide Squad. If they had said, okay, we are going to give, live service games a try, we're going to give it a try. We don't feel the necessity to produce another game like Hogwarts Legacy. We're
Yeah.
gonna go everything's going into one basket, even though we've never done it before, and then wonder why it's a failure, and then decide, oh, we're just gonna kill the entire frickin' franchise. And by the way, let a lot of people go. You don't get a job no more.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Which
just
always
dirty,
hurts
man.
my heart.
Just dirty. Just dirty. Well, anyway,
It's dirty.
What
happened? This has been fun.
Seven and I talked about this. It is December 11th. I am hopeful to try to get another episode in before Christmas, because if we go by our two-week attempt, Christmas.
What
is
about
the
between
second
Christmas and New Year?
week. So I have family flying in on Christmas Day, and everybody's leaving like a week or so
Wait a minute.
after New Year's.
Are you telling me that we could have a podcast and the area behind you would be full of people running all over your house?
Oh God, let's not do that.
Are you saying
Let's
it
not
like
do that.
that's going to make me not want to do it?
Because there's going to be a lot of alcohol and possibly substances that are not alcohol but have similar effects, and yeah.
You know, like Coca-Cola.
Yeah, totally.
Well, maybe we should be flying out to hang out with you. No,
My brother, you
okay, so
and your family are always welcome.
We'll try to figure out a time though. Yeah, but we were talking about let's do another one. If in the new year, once we're beyond some of the things that have been going on for us since October, really, we're gonna try to get back on the schedule, which is every 2 weeks. So if you're watching us on YouTube, we'd love for you to check us out in wherever you get podcasts. If you're listening on a podcast, we'd love for you to check us out on YouTube. You can hang out, chat. We've had Rita, Weirdy, Jim. We've got some people hanging out and chatting, and it's a lot of fun for us to get to hang out with folks. Both of us did a lot in the streaming world. Hapa still does. I lurk. But one of the things we love most is community engagement. So we always ask, and Hapa, you usually do it, but I'll do it this time. We always ask if you have subjects that you'd like for us to cover, or you think some things are interesting. We love to pick up recent events. We try to look, in the science world, and we try to do in technology world and gaming. We try to do that, but it does get increasingly harder and harder to dig those up. And so if you have something that you think is cool, throw it at us. Or if you'd like to hear us talk like a bunch of idiots about a historical event, throw it at us too. Unless it's Roman or Greek, because apparently Hapa knows that stuff, and I can talk like an idiot. So what I would say is, we really appreciate people watching and hanging out on YouTube. And Hapa, you always do the best talking about our Kingston, Jamaica
Hell yeah.
friends. And
those are our favorite.
Y'all Kingston, rise up, Kingston, and we will come record in Kingston.
Yeah.
Cocktail history. That's actually a fun.
Hell yeah. I'm down.
That's a good idea, because we didn't even talk about it, Hapa. What was the cocktail today?
Yeah.
Is a
oh my
great
gosh. Today is a long winter's nap, which actually is sounds pretty delicious, and I've definitely had this drink without even knowing that it was a cocktail. Now I've got to try to find it though to make sure I get the ingredients right. Where'd it go? So a long winter's nap is 2 ounces of bourbon, 2 tablespoons of infused maple syrup. If you don't know what infused maple syrup is, typically in your liquor store they'll literally have, various syrups, which it's not actual maple syrup. It's a little bit watered down. 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice, and then you garnish with the star anise and a little bit of lemon juice. Very straightforward, very simple, but delicious. I've had this before. Like I said, I don't know why it wasn't called a long winter's nap, but I know what the cocktail is. I also know that they typically shake it up, so it's a little bit frothy, but it's so good, so good. Yeah,
I do like the idea of a cocktail history. It'd be fun for us to go through and talk about the different cocktails that we've had. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm still a little miffed at Wisconsin for thinking for one moment that an old fashioned's supposed to have brandy in it. You don't know. You don't know a thing, Wisconsin. You don't know a damn thing. Okay. Wisconsin, I'm looking at you. An old fashioned doesn't have brandy in it. Get over it. Make your own frickin' drink, damn it.
We will not get over this.
I will die on this hill.
That's what it would turn into. If
really
we
would.
went through the list, we would stop.
Oh yeah,
we would stop there and be like, all right, we have to say that one to last then, because we will do nothing but gripe about the fact that
you don't put brandy in an old fashioned. That's something else.
Yeah, name it. Oh, wow, we've done this.
Yeah, we already went through all this just like months ago. Anyway,
Yeah.
as always, though, folks, it is the holidays. I cannot stress enough, like, with all the crap going on with crazy drone shit in everywhere and you know, whatever subject, pick it. Turn the news on 9 times out of 10, or turn the news immediately off because it's not even worth it. Now should be the time that you're spending time with your family, with your friends, with those that you care about. Tell the people that you care about, that you care about them. Slow down a little bit. You know, it sounds silly coming from the retired guy. For those of you that get PTO, use your PTO. Use your PTO. If you're not using your PTO,
don't leave it on the table.
Oh my God, use your PTO. Use it. Get a 4-day weekend. Get some time off. Get some time away. Like, hate to tell you, I know it's crazy. Whatever company you work for, they don't give a crap about you. You're just a number. So get what you can out of them. Please spend your time with your family, with your friends.
Row 14, row 14, column C. Please take some time off.
Exactly. Please. I can't emphasize that enough, man. For your own health, for your family's health, for your friends' health, please do it. If you have family that lives far away from you, talk to them regularly. Don't do the whole "I'll see you at Christmas" or "I'll see you during the holidays." Do a little bit more. Spend a little bit more time with each other, please, and be better to each other. Don't go out unaliving CEOs of insurance companies and whatever other craziness is going on out there. That's not even worth it, right? Like, it's a crazy world we live in. All you can control is your own world. Be better, do better, work hard, stay humble. I appreciate the hell out of all of you. We've said it a million times. Down below the video here on our YouTube channel, you can pretty much find us. All of our links are there. Hapa_fodder 7 with a 3 in there because he doesn't know how to spell. You can find him anywhere.
The 90s were crazy, man.
And hopefully we'll see you guys in the next couple weeks. And I hope you guys have a great holiday if we don't. And I know 7 does, and I definitely do. I appreciate everybody that listens everywhere, all over the world. Isn't that crazy that we're global?
Crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Rita listens to us from a new country every episode.
Yeah, every episode she is in a different country. That is a little weird, not gonna lie. Anyway, we'll see y'all next time. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye, y'all.